Hedonistic Consumerism by Marnie Williams. Consumerism is increasing levels of excessive consumption of goods and services. By excessive consumption, people purchase wants as well as needs, and these wants continue to multiply. This exhibits hedonism, which is a philosophy that values pleasure-seeking. There are common consumer behaviors that show hedonistic traits, like compulsive individuals who have a fixation with buying in response to negativity, and impulsive individuals who buy spontaneously and lack control over their urge to buy. Statistically, women have higher impulsivity levels than men. According to this graph, 47% of men made an impulse purchase because they were excited, compared to 50% female, and the numbers seem to differ, where 28% to 32%, 14%, 28%. Women statistically have higher levels. And this was a random sample of 1,000 adults in the United States. There are also lifestyles that show consumerism or spending to show social status or income, like a bon vivant lifestyle, where a bon vivant literally translates from French, a person who lives well. And there are three features for a bon vivant. They have a love for novelty and pleasure. They lack fear and have a high dependence on compliments. This tells us that the person has materialism as the measurement for happiness. There are also other lifestyles, though, like an adventurous lifestyle, that uses consumerism in a different way. It spends more on experiences, such as concerts or plays, than materials. And we conclude that this lifestyle has broken from the chains of materialism or consumerism. We wonder how businesses market to the consumers that follow these lifestyles and behaviors. The goal of marketing is to find reliable buyers, and with the reliable buyers, they have a free marketing device, as buyers tell their friends and recommend the products to family. And according to this status, this poll, kids are transferring to video streaming over pay TV, which tells us that marketing will probably shift more into social media, as kids are they're easily influenced more than adults, and marketing is now stretching out to sponsored posts and video advertisements, and the annual ad revenue is growing, and still today it is increasing, the growth rate. So this makes us wonder and want to know how to find short-term or long-term happiness. With material purchases, we have short-term pleasures, and contentment describes long-lasting happiness. So what we want to find is contentment. But how do we find contentment, and what exactly is contentment? Starting with happiness differs from contentment, where contentment is more of a big picture and the overall happiness. For example, a walk in a park. A walk in a park in a sunny day can make a person happy. But what if all that person did was take those walks? What if all he did was continuously do an activity that made him or her happy? Will the lifestyle be happy? Is it content, or is it nice to take walks? All the person does is take walks, no money, no work, no time, no family, just walks. Now this leads us to the question of, is contentment fulfillment? And also brings in the picture of peer review. Although many don't want to admit this, peer review does have a huge impact on how we think of our lives. This introduces Epicurean philosophy. Epicurus is an ancient Greek philosopher that introduced an unorthodox hedonism, where hedonism is usually seen as promiscuous, and in his time, he introduced a contemplative and moderate hedonism. Epicurus suggests looking at the pros and cons before doing an activity, like, for example, eating. If the person decides to eat out, the con would be he'd have to spend, or if he eats too much, he could get a stomach ache. But a pro would be he'd be eating, which is, pretty good. So depending on the person, whether or not he wants to bear the weight of his activity, then he should decide whether or not he could continue with this or to stay away from it. Well, simply, Epicurus states that a person has great control over his or her happiness. And this tells us to buy experiences over materials. Now, my call to you is, instead of buying a sweater this Christmas break that you may not even need, maybe save for a trip, go ziplining, go to a concert, and maybe even find your own path to happiness through contemplative hedonism. Thank you for watching. These are my references.